It reminds me Indian. The Indian has won probably more races than any motorcycle in the world, really. You know, I was rough and ready to go. I think I won every national in the United States on an Indian. I just like to go fast, you know. They wondered why I didn't slow up some of the time, but I just couldn't slow up. I just liked to ride so much.
Ed Kretz's son, Ed Kretz Jr., was also a motorcycle racer, and seeing them together, they kind of looked like brothers.
Yeah. Hold my age good.
Daytona, while it was still being run on the beach, was nicknamed the Handlebar Derby, and in 1950, Ed Jr. led the race for 99 laps. On the 100th lap, his engine seized, and he had to push his bike across the finish line. He ended up coming in 12th. Ed Kretz Jr. and his dad, Ed Kretz Sr., two of the all-time great Indian motorcycle racers.
There was nobody could beat me in my mind, and nobody could beat me.
My name's Paul Coleman. I'm 65 years old. I live in Burlington, Connecticut. I bought this 741 military motorcycle about 4 years ago, and it was supposed to have been a 38 Sport Scout. But when I got it home, I discovered that it was a 741 military machine with 38 civilian fenders. I went all through the motorcycle and started to restore it, and I found that the machine had only about maybe 500 miles on it total. No wear at all. Somebody pushed it in the corner and it sat for about 40 years. That's why I call it my little orphan. Seeing as this little orphan was a hybrid, I didn't want to finish it red because the majority of your Indians are red. This was kind of a mongrel, so I finished it in colors that I thought that I liked and I thought would be pretty on it. And it's Edgeworth Tobacco Can blue and Hubbell electric plug yellow. And I think it's pretty. It's different. It makes a nice little scooter. I enjoy riding it. No, I think Indian always had something that appealed to people. The Indian went under simply because of poor management and ill-advised moves. Harley hung on by the skin of their teeth, and they were inches away from oblivion, too. They're very fortunate to be in business. But the Indian always had the heart of the American rider.
This is the corner of East 5th Street and Avenue O. The old-timers called it Avenue Nothin'. Remember Doc Pat said that another Prototype 4 was made in the factory after the war? Well, we tracked it down and found it in our own back junkyard, so to speak.
Snap your fingers when? I'm Clinton Feld. We're in a sloppy garage in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm holding a fuel tank, half from my Prototype Indian 4.
Tell me about the bike.
Okay. I bought this Prototype Indian in the early part of 1962, It had 44 miles on it, but it didn't run, and it wasn't completed by the Indian people. It took me about 1 year to get it to run and almost complete it.
You want to just tell me about the carburetor setup here while I'm shooting?
Okay, when you saw us say go, and I don't want you to
Go.
Okay. Well, the reason the carburetor is up in the height there at the same level as the fuel tank, they had no other place to put it. And naturally it can't have gravity feed, so it had an electric fuel pump on it. But Indian never bothered to make a provision for a generator which could charge the battery, which could in turn operate the fuel pump. And since then, that's been taken care of by myself. Lower down here is the 4-speed gearbox, and there's a window in it where Indian took stroboscope pictures to find out why it was having trouble jumping out of 3rd and 4th speed. And they finally corrected that. Other than that, it had very little teething problems. I got it started on a motorcycle at an early age, a few days prior to my birth. To be exactly, the night before, I was sitting on a tandem seat inside my mother on my father's Excelsior motorcycle, and that must have been about the early part of August of 1917, and I was born the next day. A little premature from the bouncing. That's about it. A little human interest.
In 1899, my father's family did not own any motor vehicles. They had horses, they had powder mills and all that kind of thing. Everything was run by water. He was born in 1887 in a house that had electric lights. But in '99, he and his brother decided that they would like to build a motorcycle from a kit that they found advertised in Popular Mechanics. They bought the kit and built the engine. It has a brass cylinder, it has a brass crankcase, brass flywheel. They had to make the ignition coil. They wound it out of wire. The carburetor, they made that. It's a box with cotton waste in it that you poured gasoline in, and it just sucked the air right through the gas tank, and that was how you got the mixture. My grandfather came home to find these two teenage boys trying to start their motorcycle, and it wouldn't run. Being a chemist and not a mechanic, he went to the laboratory and got some ether. They put that in the gas tank, and that woke it up in a hurry. He was so impressed by their efforts that he asked around and found that an Indian motorcycle was considered to be the best motorcycle. And he bought them a 1902 Indian. That was interesting because 30 years later, my father became the head of the Indian Motorcycle Company.